Greetings and welcome to Beatles Stuffology. We were going to record this in an amphitheatre in Tripoli, lit by 2,000 Arabs carrying flame-lit torches, but we've decided to just do it in the usual way. We are happy to be back after what has been a little bit of a recording break for us. But yeah, we are here to talk about BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis, as we always do. My name is Gigi McQuarrie, and I'm here with my co-host Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine and impressed by your jaunty introduction. Are you going to be changing it each time now?
Oh, well, that's just the excitement that you'll have to live with to find out whether that's going to be the case going forward or not. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. That's how exciting it's going to be.
Given the huge gap between recordings, it's obviously going to be a sense of heightened tension I'm going to have to live with for such a long time.
Yes, absolutely. This week we are returning to side 2 of... No, we're not. Edit! This time we are starting side 2 of With the Beatles, and that means we are kicking off with a cover version. We are kicking off with Over Beethoven, and I will try and keep my rolling R's to a minimum as much as I can. Chuck Berry classic, one of the most covered songs of all time. You know the backstory. What do you think of it?
Well, interesting you mention it's the start of side 2, because of course on the second American album it was the opener. Obviously they were doing different things over there, the record company was. So they decided to whack this one out at the start, because it's that kind of thing really, isn't it? It is an opener. It's designed to pick up the pace after that huge gap. It's the massive amount of time it's taken you to turn the record over from one side to the other. It's a standard, isn't it? I mean, now we would call it a standard, but I suppose at the time it was one of those really early, powerful, rhythm and blues rock and roll tracks. So it's got something, and even George's slightly weird intonation can't quite bring that down.
Yeah, he does have a weird intonation on this, doesn't he? The song was less than 10 years old at this point, so it was originally released in 1956 by Chuck Berry, so it's not been kicking around for a long period of time. It's from that Chuck Berry Is on Top album, and I know that album was a collection of singles, but the list of songs on that album is just astonishing. Carol, Maybelline, Sweet Little Rock and Roll, Johnny Be Good, Roll Over Beethoven. It's just wall to wall standards, like you say, what have become standards now, and even within that, there's no doubt that Roll Over Beethoven stands out, and I think I'm not going to say it's my favourite cover version that they've ever done, but it's head and shoulders above Please Mr. Postman. It's so much better. I question whether George was the best person to sing this, but this might be one that would have benefited a little bit either from John Lennon's kind of slightly more throaty vocal, or maybe even McCartney's, obviously it's Chuck Berry, not Little Richard, but if he did his Little Richard voice in this, I can imagine that would give it quite a wallop. But even so, I kind of ended up liking it a bit more than I was expecting to.
It's quite funny, isn't it? Because it's them paying their dues. This is them sort of saying, here are some examples of the kind of songs that we grew up with and that influenced us. And it's clearly had a very long-term influence on them, because I sort of listened to Roll Over Beethoven a little bit more closely in preparation for this than I ever have before. It sort of passes over you, and suddenly you then start to realise that what you've got is a piece of music about music. Now, I know it's obvious from the title, or Beethoven, but actually he has, however subtly or cleverly, I'll leave that for other people to decide, embedded references to the likes of Carl Perkins and Bo Diddley in there. So it's kind of referential about music. Almost like it's trumpeting this new form of music, which I suppose is kind of the point of it. And that sort of then put me in mind of actually another form of influence that had on the Beatles. And, the song that instantly sort of pegged in my brain was Glass Onion, where you've got the Beatles writing about the Beatles and I mean, there are loads of other examples as well. Loads of self-referential songs. Public Image Limited did a song called Public Image. And there's all sorts of things. I think even one of the later REM songs starts referring to lots of other previous REM songs. It's something that bands like to do. That's the one. And it's almost then as though, is this the granddaddy of them all? Is this the one that sort of said, look, songs don't always have to be about I love you, you love me, or ooh, I'm going to write you a letter to tell you about how I feel, or ooh, you dumped me. They can actually be just about just a bunch of nonsense, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Was your first exposure to this song the Beatles version, or were you aware of it before this?
Probably. I don't know. See, I mean, you mentioned Chuck Berry, and in my mind, Chuck Berry is this older guy on 70s and 80s, chat shows, doing his jumping along on one leg, crouching, playing the guitar sort of thing. And he's also those slightly sordid stories about his very sordid sex life, and some of the very sordid things that he's done in that respect as well. So I think a lot of the Chuck Berry stuff that I suppose people of my age might have experienced is people talk about how great he is, but then also looking at this kind of vaudevillian character on some of those programs, and then finding out about some of those, dodgier aspects. So he's sort of there with, Jerry Lee Lewis, for example, isn't he? In terms of so there's this great sort of back catalogue of music. Yeah, but then there's also this. So I don't know. I mean, is he more cartoon than perhaps sort of great hero? When you listen to some of these so-called standards, do they hold up as classic pieces, or do they have to be appreciated because of the context? The example I always throw out at this stage is Never Mind the Bollocks, which is devoid of context, just a really sort of standard pub rock album. With the context, groundbreaking, and all of that sort of thing. Roll Over Beethoven, it's fine. In the wrong hands, it becomes really, really dull. Yes, Jeff Lynne, ELO, I'm looking at you.
Oh God, that ELO version is so bad. I listened to like 5
and it goes on for
versions.
So long.
Oh, it's like 8 minutes long or something. It's unstoppable. It's like watching an avalanche of really, really terrible music fall down the slopes of the... No, anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. Yeah, it's really bad. It's awful. Listening to the Chuck Berry version is kind of instructive, because it is... I mean, I know that album that I was talking about, Chuck Berry is on top. Like Bo Diddley's all over that album, but he's not on the recording of Roll Over Beethoven. It's Chuck Berry that plays guitar. And it's kind of interesting listening to the way that he plays it next to the way that George Harrison plays it, because he is so confident. The way that he knocks out that lick at the beginning, and particularly the little instrumental break, the lead line over the instrumental break, he is just so confident and gifted as a guitarist. And I'm not saying that to sort of put George Harrison down. I think he actually manages the intro to it very well. He's a little bit candid on the instrumental break. But the live version, which is on Live at the BBC with the Beatles, Harrison he's learned it by then. And it's kind of weird because they played this song a lot. And it's kind of strange that he doesn't quite have it down for the album. But by the time they're doing it live, he seems to have nailed it. Or maybe they just ran out of time and didn't do another take. Maybe it might simply be as simple as that. But at this point anyway, it's so obvious how much better a guitarist Chuck Berry is than George Harrison. That won't last, but at this point, it's just the confidence with which that song is delivered is amazing. And it's also got some bass in it as well, which is the other thing that the Beatles version is very much lacking. There's no bottom in their version at all. And as such is probably a fairer recreation of what they would have sounded like on stage, because that was always the thing. All you could hear was Ringo pounding away, and all the treble was up, and the bass got lost and all the rest of it. So maybe if one wanted to be generous, you could say that was more representative in terms of being on stage. But it's very interesting to compare them side by side.
So I wonder then what the witty riposte would be once Paul McCartney wrote his oratorio, about how the circle is now complete. Look, you were once the rock star, and now you are the classical composer.
Yeah. Oh God, let's not go down that line just yet.
Roll
Shall
over
we?
Bachman Turner overdrive, perhaps. I don't know. But it's interesting how some rock stars, when they want to be taken more seriously, then go the orchestral route. I'm pretty sure even Metallica have done an album with a symphony orchestra, or maybe it's just a live show or something. But it becomes the way to be taken seriously.
Yeah, with variable results, as I think ELO have successfully proved with this song. Just sticking an orchestra on something does not necessarily mean that it's any easier to take it seriously, or indeed that you have some great worth as an artist. And the longer we spiral into prog rock and technique over ability, is the clearer that distinction will become. But that's perhaps a conversation for another day.
Fair enough. I mean, this is this song just sort of gives us sort of little kind of cultural links that are quite useful, probably more interesting in some respects to discuss than the song itself, because it's fine,
Yeah.
Fairly good performance. I mean, if you ignore Harrison and his pronunciation in particular of roll over Beethoven, which still kind of cracks me up. You listen to him singing that line, fantastic. But it gives you some little things in here that are worth mentioning. Dare I mention Superman 3, for example?
You can risk it.
Fair enough. A classic of its genre. I remember going to see Superman and Superman 2 in the cinema. I don't remember going to see Superman 3 because the Beatles, Lennon, McCartney in particular, have never been very big on licensing their own songs. But Superman 3 is one of the rare examples that actually has the Beatles playing, it's Roll Over Beethoven. And of course, that was purely because of Richard Lester. So the director, Dick Lester, director of Hard Day's Night, comes along and says, do you know what, I'd quite like to use this song. And they go, tell you what, you did us a massive favour, we'll do you, dare I say it, a massive favour. We'll do you a favour and we'll let you do it. There aren't too many other examples of Beatles songs, actual Beatles recordings, being licensed for films in that way. The fact that it ends up in Superman 3, though, is just a little bit on the odd side for me.
Yeah, it's a curious one. I don't think I ever went to see Superman 3 in the cinema either. I definitely went to see Superman 1 and 2 in the pictures. I know that for a fact. But I think at that stage, even a fairly uncritical young teenager had given up on the relative qualities of those films.
I mean, so much so. Superman 3. I mean, I can't even remember. Was Gene Hackman still in it at that stage? I'm not sure he was. No, he'd moved on by that stage.
Yeah, I don't think so. No. Is that the one Richard Pryor is in?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Dear.
Robert Vaughn.
Okay. Oh wow, big hitter.
Yeah. Pamela Stevenson as well. I'm not quite sure what role she. I mean, I don't even know if I've even seen it. So when you're reading through the plot summary and it says the hero commits petty acts of vandalism such as straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa and blowing out the Olympic flame, I think I would definitely have remembered that if I'd have seen it.
Yeah, you would think that would be something that would stick in the mind.
Just like I've never seen Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, in which Milton Keynes stands in for Manhattan. Never seen that either. But,
seriously?
Seriously, yeah.
Okay, good. No, yeah. I mean, listen, my beloved hometown of Glasgow stands in for New York all the time, so why not Milton Keynes? Who am I to judge?
Absolutely. So Superman 3. Yeah, and the Beatles. It made its money back, so maybe you could say that they contributed to that. Maybe, if you're being generous. But the other cultural touchstone that I misremembered it, in fairness, was that I did remember that at some point in the 1980s there was a not particularly funny sitcom called Roll Over Beethoven. Now, I remembered it as starring Dennis Waterman. I was wrong about that. It's actually Nigel Planer. And it's a sitcom about a rock star who buys a mansion in some village in the countryside for some peace and quiet, and falls in love with the local piano teacher. So you've got the sort of the clash of cultures, the rock star, the country village. He's in the mansion. She's trying to teach classical piano, but they end up, will they, won't they? Yes, they probably will, and all of that sort of stuff going on. Do you not remember this at all?
Literally no idea what you're talking about. I have no memory of this whatsoever. Nigel Planer was in it? Really?
Nigel Planer, yeah. Nigel Planer. Well,
so you've seen it then? This isn't this. You're not just reciting a wiki article.
No, I remembered watching it.
Okay.
And obviously I've gone back and you can find some episodes on YouTube. But actually, as it turns out, he was in the first couple of episodes of the second series, but then for some reason he gets written out of it, goes off on tour or something like that, and then someone else comes along in his place, and it's apparently never really spoken about. So
right,
a little bit odd, but it's one of those weird things where you've got kind of like a attractive younger lady living with her older parent, in this case her dad, who is always really, really picky and so on and so forth, won't let her live her life, and all of that sort of stuff, and of course clash of cultures, blah blah blah. It's just a really, really odd thing, and of course, bearing in mind all of that, I think it might have been a Marks and Gran sitcom. So obviously you've got it kind of leading into things like Birds of a Feather, but it's they chose as their cultural touchstone in the 1980s Roll Over Beethoven, as being that thing that embodies the clash of the old and the new, and yet of course what they picked was the slightly jaded rock star rather than something that was being particularly current and fresh. So Roll Over Beethoven has become such a cliche now, in that sense. Yeah, being picked for sitcom title really isn't representing anything, like the 56 song.
Okay, wow, that's kind of fascinating. A hasty bing informs me that the young attractive lady in question is Lisa Goddard.
Lisa Goddard.
Nice that she was getting work. That's good. Yeah, that's kind of, I'd never heard of this at all. This is completely new to me. Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, good. I suppose
maybe
it does
wasn't on STV.
Yeah. Maybe it was except for viewers in Scotland. That's not beyond the realms of possibility. Yeah, we lost a lot of television that way. Oh well, cultural artifacts from a different time. It's kind of interesting though. It does speak to the song's kind of cultural legacy or cultural footprint. That's what it's going to embody, and it can manage to have that kind of meaning that people would just sort of instantly recognize it. But I'm not sure if it was based on this version alone that might quite be the case though. How are you feeling about, other than the pronunciation, how are you feeling about Mr. Harrison's performance in this?
Yeah, I mean it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's sort of noticeable, isn't it, that what we're struggling to do at this stage is get him the self-penned material. Yeah. So there is that case of, well, let's be nice to George. Let's give him something to sing, and let's give him something from the classic set. Because of course on this album he actually gets 3 songs to sing, which is something of a development, really. So they're kind of giving him a little bit more responsibility. But on the other hand, they're not necessarily giving him the best material. And I hate to say it, George, as we've covered in a previous episode, that includes your own song. Yeah. I don't think he rated "Don't Bother Me" either. So at least we're not saying anything he would vindictively disagree with. I think it's fair to say. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not the best material, and I think it's kind of
telling that if you listen to it in headphones, if you listen to it relatively carefully, it's not the best produced song on the album either. The separation is really brutal, with everything pushed over to one channel and then everything pushed over to the other. There's some, Ringo's got his moments here. He's probably making the most effort. He's got some nice sort of transitions and some nice fills and stuff. But again, there's no bottom to this recording. Like, the bass is so light on it. Like, you have to really concentrate to hear what McCartney's playing on this, and the bass drum, it just gets kind of lost as well. And that's usually an indication that this has been recorded really quick and with not that much care and attention. Now, I'm obviously not going to criticize George Martin as a producer. That would not be my place to do. But at the same time, this has all the hallmarks of something which has just been like banged out. There's no great care and attention being put on that, and that's maybe not entirely unfair. It's perfectly pleasant. It's a decent performance. I'm not a big fan of the hand claps either, I gotta say. They're a bit kind of, like, I don't know. I assume that they're there to try and give a bit of energy, but I find that they kind of do the opposite. They kind of feel a bit almost enervating. They kind of sap a bit of the energy out of it. I don't know. They're mixed way too high as well. I don't know. It's just a weird thing for them to be there at all. Yeah. So it's,
hand claps are a bit of a they're a bit of a weird thing when it comes to recording. Some people get very precious about hand claps. I can remember Noel Gallagher going on, I can't remember if it was for the second or the third album, going on about the importance of hand claps and having real hand claps, I suppose, at that stage, as opposed to Fairlight created hand claps. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got their own points that they want to make. Some people really dislike cowbells on recordings as well. I love a good cowbell myself. But, some people are just not into cowbells, and that baffles and frightens me. And I guess
I think there's a time and a place for a cowbell.
Oh yeah. It's got to be in the right song. Yeah. Like on Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey. Perfect place for a cowbell. Yesterday, not so much.
I was more thinking the Swiss Alps. Perfect place for a cowbell.
Okay, well that works too. That works too. Yeah.
They're a very weird instrument. Very kind of monotone.
Yeah.
Which I realise for bells.
I mean, you're right.
Bells. But even amongst a monotone instrument, it's a very flat, dull, monotone sound. But that's the kind of high grade material that our listeners are after, really. Isn't
I think it probably is. You want to chuck it there?
Well, unless you want to start getting into, the ins and outs of Ringo on this track, which I know you love. Just to say that actually I did watch quite a good recording of this on the old YouTube, and it was fine. They were having a great time, and it was only at the end that I thought they've not showed many shots of Ringo. And then on the wide shot, as they were doing their traditional bow, I realised why. It wasn't Ringo doing the drumming. It was one of those occasions when they would have had one of the stand-ins. So it might have been on an Australian tour, I think.
Or like Jimmy Nicol or someone like that.
Someone like that, yeah. So I didn't miss him when he wasn't there, but that may say more about my ability to pick apart some of the more technical elements.
Yeah, I'm not going to bang on about Ringo too much in this. I think he does a good job. I think he's putting in the effort. But it's not the most demanding song for him. Neither is it one which I think necessarily shows him off to his best ability. But yeah, he's doing good work. I mean, McCartney is doing quite well as well. It's just really difficult to hear anything that he's doing. Well, you can hear his hand claps nice and clear, for better or worse. But in terms of his bass performance, it's just like, it's kind of, it's down there somewhere. But there's not an awful lot to get that excited about.
Yeah, fair enough. So I mean, that's kind of where we are with this. It's another one of those placeholder type songs that's purely designed to give the record that little bit of oomph, that little bit of momentum when it needs it, before then moving on to the next thing. And the beauty of actually pretty much the entire Beatles oeuvre is that they rattle through the songs, and I'm sure if you were to sort of to do a content analysis, you wouldn't find that many songs even in the later period that's over three 3.5 minutes. So they really do like to get in, get the song done, and get on again. So yeah, maybe that's what we should be doing with the recording. Got in there, we've got it done, we've waffled a bit. Let's move on.
That seems like a very good idea. Quick score.
Yeah, 5, 6. Let's 6-ish. Yeah.
6. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'll go with 6.
5, 6. Yeah.
All right. Okay, and bow. Yeah. Excellent.
Top button done up. Quick bow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now here's a jaunty little anecdote before the next song.
Yeah, I think we could probably skip that for the time being. But if you've got a Flanagan and Allen number loaded, then that's always good.
Yeah.
All right, let's draw a veil over this. You can contact us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. We're on Twitter @Beatles_ology. And you can find more of my writing at www.jgmcquarrie.scot. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you're using so that more people can find the show. Next episode, it's the next track. Hold me tight. But until then, keep listening.